Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, mom spoiler season, my goodness, March of the Machine has been crazy, has been off the wall. There have been things flying left and right, new cards that no one ever expected, and this one might be the most unexpected. Yeah, I never thought a card like this was going to exist because, well, there's a long story behind cards like this. Now, let me bore you with Magic history. Just kidding. I mean, well, a little bit, but we'll get to that. First up, let's get to the card. Let's talk about this fantastic card. It is Herald of Hoofbeats. And I always find it funny with cards that are named like Herald. It's like, I just picture, you know, spelled like Herald, like H-A-R-O-L-D, like Herald. Hey, it's Herald. Herald, come over here. Herald of Hoofbeats. For some reason, Herald lives in a city called Hoofbeats. Yeah, that's just, yeah. I don't know why I think about that way, but regardless, Herald does not mean that. But yeah, Herald of Hoofbeats is not interesting because of its name. It is interesting because what it does. It is a 3/3 human knight for 3 and a blue. So, very inefficient, you know, 3 mana for a 4, or 3 mana for 4 mana for a 3/3, inefficient. But it makes up for that and then some. Horsemanship. Okay, that is back. What? So, horsemanship, this creature can't be blocked except by creatures with horsemanship. We'll get back to that here in a second because, more importantly, other knights you control have horsemanship. We have a horsemanship anthem, a horsemanship lord, giving horsemanship to your knights. How weird, how janky, how hilarious. Horsemanship is a really, really old mechanic, and we'll get to a card here in a little bit that this is somewhat reminiscent of, but it's incredibly old. I think it's like from back in like Portal 3 Kingdoms, and it kind of doesn't make sense in the context of Magic anymore. It kind of did at the time, but these days it doesn't really make any sense because, okay, the only thing that can block this is something else that's on a horse, right? But also, horses can't block this. Like, just like if you have a horse creature, those creature type horse, you know, horses can't block these, which is hilarious. You're like, I'm on a horse, therefore you can't block me, even though you are a horse. Also, this is definitely reminiscent of the flying mechanic, keyword, obviously, right? So flyers can block flyers. Makes sense. They're in the air. But also creatures with reach can block that too, right? That all makes sense. Okay, cool. But flyers can't block horses. In fact, nothing can block horses except for with horsemanship. Someone on a horse is unblockable unless someone else on a horse is blocking them. They have to have horsemanship on there. Just the art, it doesn't matter if they're in the art on a horse, they have to have horsemanship. It's such a weird thing that's like, yeah, it made sense at the time. Okay, yeah, you're on a horse, you can't be caught, right? You can go around others, you know, and it's hard to catch you. But like nowadays it's like, okay, I've got a flyer, which is really, it's like a supersonic dragon kind of thing, and it can't block your guy because he's on a horse. What? Okay, so yeah, that's why it's kind of crazy that it's coming back. And also, again, this is basically just like permanent evasion. Not permanent, I mean, this can be dealt with, but like, this is just, again, your creatures are unblockable. Your opponents are not going to have any creatures with horsemanship. I can basically guarantee that unless they're playing this exact same card. Horsemanship is not a thing anymore, okay? It's not a thing. So, yeah, unless they start making more and more creatures with horsemanship, which they might, maybe they do, maybe that's what's going to happen here, and we're going to have horses everywhere. But yeah, basically this is just your team is unblockable. You're playing Knight Tribal, your Knights are unblockable. Yeah, this is just crazy off the wall. Never expected them to ever bring this back, and they brought it back in a huge way. And if you're a Knight Tribal fan, good for you. You've got a fantastic new card to add in your deck. Also, we'll talk about some other kinds of commanders that are going to want to consider this, and some unexpected ones potentially, or at least one unexpected one. But yeah, let's jump into the next card I want to bring up, and that is going to be the original Horseman Lord, Sun Quan, Lord of Wu. All creatures gain horsemanship as long as Sun Quan is in play. Yep. So this is weirded in an old way, but basically you get the gist. Hey, your creatures have horsemanship. So that's basically it. All your creatures have horsemanship. Basically, again, your creatures now are unblockable. Now, this card I believe is on the reserve list. That's why it's commanding that price of $144.59. So it's never going to be reprinted. And yeah, that's kind of why I thought that horsemanship was just going to stay back there and never come back. That's one of the reasons, obviously, because, I mean, yeah, again, it's on the reserve list. This card is at least. So nothing similar-ish can be printed. You can't do it like a direct print. Now, this new one is not quite direct, right? It's different in a couple different ways. So yeah, Wizards, I think, is fine with their own reserve list policy, although they've broken that before, on their own, with MTG 30th anniversary. But let's ignore that. But yes, of course, this is what the card is actually reminiscent of. But in a more comparable card that actually does see play in Commander, because again, it's not $150, and yeah, no one really plays this because it's expensive. It's really expensive. So yeah, Archetype Imagination. This is kind of more so what it is reminiscent to, for me at least, Herald of Horsemanship or whatever it is again. Yeah, Archetype Imagination. Creatures you control have flying. Creatures opponents control lose. Creatures opponents control lose flying, can't have or gain flying. A fantastic card. One that can just basically make your team near unblockable. Now, I will say that there are scenarios, obviously, where creatures can be blocked. Again, I mentioned reach earlier. If your opponent's creatures have reach, they can block your flyers still. You're removing flying from your opponent's creatures. You're not removing reach. So the reach creatures can still block the flyers. Now, that being said, a lot of the times this is near unblockability. And also this brand new one is obviously different because it's slightly lower to the ground too, which is very nice. But again, both kind of serve the same purpose. Hey, make my creatures unblockable, which is just, again, a very, very powerful thing. Especially when you have certain commanders that really would like this and would like to hit hard with it. So let's move on to some commanders that might want to consider this one. One of the first ones I thought about, and I was like, what if there's any knight commanders out there? I wonder if this one is a knight commander, and it is Rafika the Many. It is a knight, a human knight, not a soldier, a knight. Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. So Rafik can be a incredible Voltron commander that can destroy your opponents in absolutely no time. Yeah, again, it's got double strike. And because, it doesn't have double strike, but it's going to get double strike because you're going to swing alone with it. So if you got a lot of exalted things in play too, it's going to get a giant pump. Again, essentially, once you get it up to 11 power, it's going to be a one-shot KO because it's going to hit for twice as much. And now, again, with this brand new card, throw it down and say, Rafik, are you a knight? Yes, I am a knight. Cool. You have horsemanship. Get on this horse. Okay. And then your opponents can't block because your creature's on a horse. Right? Magic makes total sense. Yeah, that's why this card is, again, I never thought I'd see it because it just doesn't make sense in Magic's context anymore. And again, horsemanship. Who knew it would ever come back? Okay, next up, we got the Council of the Four. This one can be built in a couple of different ways. It can be built Knight Tribal, though, because you can make a lot of knights with this. Whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. Whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 white knight creature token. So, hey, this triggers when your opponents do things, too. So that's fantastic. You get to, maybe benefit your opponents and be like, hey, you know what? Let's all draw some cards. Okay, I'll draw some more cards too then. Thank you very much. Hey, also, you know what? Let's all just cast more spells. Maybe I'll put some cost reducers and play like a Helm of Awakening or that kind of stuff too. Maybe I'll put some cost reducers in play. Everyone casts more spells. Great. Everyone's having a great time. Cool. Oh, ignore my little, knight army that's just sitting here. They're fine. They're not going to do anything. Oh, by the way, now I'm playing this card and they all have horsemanship. My knights are unblockable. They're coming through on you, taking you out. Yeah, that can be a very spicy, flavorful play. Have fun with that. So yeah, definitely a commander that can consider this. Next up, you haven't seen my episode on Sidar Jabari of Zalfir. Make sure you check that one out. Not going to go through the entire kind of strategy on this commander, but yeah, hey, apparently Eminence is back as well. Gross. Regardless, here we go. Whenever you attack with one or more knights, Knight Tribal. If Sidar Jabari is in the command zone on the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. So loot. Again, free looting effect that you just start off with. Good for you. Knight Tribal. Here we go. Flying for a strike. Whenever Sidar Jabari deals counter to a player, return target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yep. Go get knights. Get them back. Discard, loot, all the fun things. And of course, again, hey, you know what? Again, your commander already is, evasive with flying. And I don't know how this exactly works, in the context of Magic. But, so here we go. It's already evasive, right, with flying, which isn't perfect evasion. Horsemanship basically is perfect evasion for the vast majority of the time, though. It's going to get through. So just picture how this works. So you play this new card. Sidar Jabari now has horsemanship and flying. So is Sidar Jabari on top of a horse, which is on top of this griffin thingy? Is that how that works? Is that how Magic works? Is this how Magic works? Or is Sidar Jabari riding this griffin thing, which is riding an obnoxiously large or even a tiny horse? Is that how is this working? Regardless, I mean, I don't know how it works. It doesn't really matter in the context of Magic. A lot of weird things happen in Magic, but yeah, a commander that can definitely consider this brand new crazy card. Speaking of which, another new commander that if you haven't seen my episode on it, make sure you check it out. Oh my goodness, Elenda and Azor. Oh, okay, a lot of players are going to be excited about this one. A 6/6, flying, ward 2, vampire, knight, Sphinx. So yeah, knight is in there, and lucky for you it is, because yeah, you're also going to be making knights too. Oh, this is a gross, awesome commander. Whenever it attacks, you may pay X, white, blue, black. If you do, draw X cards. So a giant draw spell, essentially. Trigger on attack. Fantastic. Draw an absurd amount of cards. Wheels work really well in this deck too because, well, the next part of the game, each end step, you may pay 4 life. If you do, create a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens. With lifelink equal to the number of cards you draw on this turn. So a commander that can make an absurd amount of knights as well. So this, again, with your horsemanship, is basically going to be unblockable. And then all your knights as well. So all your vampire knights get on horses. That makes a lot more sense than being on a griffin on a horse or whatnot, or being on a horse on a griffin. Regardless if it makes sense or not, basically, again, making your army unblockable can, of course, be incredibly impactful. And again, if you haven't seen this episode, make sure you check it out. But yeah, a lot of potential for this brand new card. Speaking of which, General Tazri. Now you might be thinking, that's not Knight Tribal, Mitch, that's Ally Tribal. Give me a second. So when General Tazri enters the battlefield, you may search the library for an ally creature card, reveal, open your hand, then shuffle. Pay Wooburg, ally creature you control, get +X until end of turn, X the number of colors among those creatures. So, yes, this most of the time is built Ally Tribal. However, the way that Alec and myself have built separate Ally Tribal deck, I just said it wrong, tribal decks have been Lords Tribal. So a bunch of Lords. And we've gone about in different ways, but basically, let's say one like, that says, hey, illusions get +1 have hexproof. Lord of Illusion, I think that's what that one's called. Correct me in the console if I'm wrong on that. So you put that in the deck. You also put one that you maybe pumps vampires, maybe one that pumps goblins, maybe all these other kind of pump effects, essentially, all these other kind of tap effects, these kind of Lord effects that say like, hey, again, like a Zombie Land of Scrolls, tap on untap wizard you control. Cool. So you have all those different kinds of cards in the deck, and what you do is you get General Tazri in play, and you tutor for Mirror Entity, an ally, well, and also a knight, and also a vampire, and all the other things. 1/1 shapeshifter or changeling, so it's every single creature type. So yeah, your General Tazri can search for this and get in your hand. Get this into play. It is fantastic in this kind of a deck. Pay X until end of turn. Creature you control have base power, toughness, XX, and gain all creature types. Giving your creatures all creature types again with a Lord's Tribal deck makes them so they're all of the Lord effects, affect them essentially, right? They're all creature types. So again, your vampire tribal stuff affects your, your knights, which affect your humans. Everything gets affected. Everything gets pumped. And of course, again, when you get Herald in play, they all now have horsemanship because on top of being all those other things, they're also knights, right? So now your entire army is unblockable. And that can just be a great way to finish your opponents off with a giant alpha strike at the end of the game. Also, I love Maskwood Nexus. That's another great card in the deck. Basically the exact same thing, though. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own there on the battlefield. So even better, actually. But yeah, another way to essentially be like, hey, all my creatures are knights now. So yeah, if you're kind of in this kind of like maybe a changeling tribal deck could utilize it too. Or again, a Lord's Tribal deck. Or yeah, just Knight Tribal. Definitely can consider this brand new card. Overall, Herald of Hoofbeats, that's the name, not Herald of Horsemanship, but basically Herald of Horsemanship. Is a really cool new card. Again, one that I never thought could exist because I'm like, yeah, okay, horsemanship just doesn't make sense in today's context, right? Because we've got flying dragons, we've got outer space stuff, we've got giant Eldrazi from the moon, in the moon or whatever, we've got all these crazy things, and it's like, yeah, Emrakul can't block this because it's on a horse? Yeah. So yeah, again, it doesn't make sense in today's context. Also, again, the cards that are, do have horsemanship mostly are like the reserve list. We haven't seen horsemanship in such a long time, and something that gives horsemanship, I definitely did not expect. It's a crazy cool card. It's one that, again, has potential in Knight Tribal, Changeling Tribal, what do you call it again? Lord's Tribal. I don't know why that's escaping me right now, but yeah. Has a good amount of potential, making your army basically unblockable, unless you're playing against someone else who's also utilizing this, most likely. So yeah, there you go. A really interesting card. Regardless, you haven't seen my most recent episode on another interesting card. Oh my goodness, Dance with Calamity. This might be my favorite card in a long, long time. There's so many crazy things that you can do with it, and so many crazy deck ideas that you can build with it. And it's just very off the wall and awesome, dripping with flavor, dripping with potential. It is just incredible. So yeah, make sure you check that episode out. But yeah, comment below with your thoughts on Herald of Hoofbeats. Make sure you stay tuned for, I don't even know if there's, oh goodness, there might be even more quick takes and spoilers coming out. There's crazy things are happening. You haven't seen my one from earlier this morning. It's not even on, it's not even on March Machine. There was another like Dungeon Dragons, like, Universe Beyond spoiler thing that's pretty crazy too. So yeah, spoiler season is just crazy. But yeah, of course, stay tuned. And as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.